My bestie's on vacation. So meet the new Nikki, Lauren Kalil.
Oh no, I could never replace Nikki. She's too cool.
I know. I just on the off chance Nikki actually listens to this, I want her to go, "What the fuck? What? What are you been?"
I'm already replaced.
Yeah, we had a running off the air joke about that from time to time. That when she was on maternity, I'd have whoever subbing, and there were several that I was calling the new Nikki, but they're all friends of hers, like people like she helped pick and helped recruit to do it. It's like, oh, Dev, Steph Chung was a regular. She was on all the
Oh
time,
yeah.
and we love Steph, and she's really smart and funny and quick on her feet, which you have to do for all of this. And um, I was always calling her the new Nikki or the next Nikki.
Nikki made her way back. She's doing it all now.
Thank God, I can't do this alone.
Yes. She couldn't leave you hanging, John.
I know. Well, we're going to talk about you tonight, not me, but I'm sure we probably have some similar stories around that. So,
I
well,
believe it.
welcome to the show. First time on. This is fun.
I know, this is great. You guys, I've been a big fan of the show since before the whole rebranding and renaming. And like Nikki has always been somebody who I've followed in the CrossFit space because her and I have similar backgrounds, how she used to be like in local TV, was an anchor. And I was like, wow, that's so cool that she was able to like branch out and make her way into the CrossFit space. So then seeing you two collab and, now be your own podcast and stuff, I think is just, it's so cool. And it genuinely is entertaining.
Dude, I am so lucky to be partnered up with Nikki. We became fast friends early on, and I just asked her to sub. Like I had this a different co-host when I started, and it's
Mm.
dude Chad, and he's a great dude and friend, and he's close to the Panchecks, which is how I knew him. And the funny story is the podcast was actually going to be me, Chad, Saxon, and Spencer. We're all going to co-host it. It was gonna be like a round table kind of thing. And we were talking about the soft air. You can't get athletes to do shit. So like, you know, and I say that with love. Like,
It's
everything
tough
seems like a great,
sometimes.
yeah, everything seems like a great idea. You look at the calendar and realize you got to eat 6 meals a day and still train 4 hours a day like those guys do. So I could never pin them down. And Chad was always busy. And he and I both worked day jobs. So it was like never worked out. Well, anyway, I met Nikki and had her come on the show a few times to do some CrossFit news. And it was like the first time we were on the air together. It was just like we'd known each other for decades.
Ugh,
And
that's such a great feeling when
yeah,
you
it was
meet
fun.
somebody like that who you can just connect with and you already act like best friends when you don't even really know that much about each other, at least from like your actual interactions.
I knew she was crazy. I can spot a crazy person.
I think that honestly, all of us are a little bit crazy. You can't be in this space, working in this space, or anything in this space without having like a couple screws loose.
Well, the thing for me is like I'd never done any kind of media ever, never even considered it, and I wanted somebody that knew what you guys do, and could carry the weight of the interview while I sat there and gave my snarky comments, you know. So
It's all about the balance.
yeah, hey, we got guests in the chat tonight, by the way. Hey, Bruce. Bruce is on the Batman.
Bruce.
Bruce. We all know Bruce.
Bruce is a great pump up man for all of the YouTube content that everybody puts out.
I know. I was going to say I need a pump up man, but I'm not sure that it come off right. So I was curious, like as I was thinking about what we are going to talk about tonight.
Mhm.
Like I just kind of gave my mini story into CrossFit media. Like, how'd you find yourself here?
Oh my gosh. I stumbled and face planted here. It's weird because I didn't really know that I was looking for this. I knew that I loved CrossFit and I knew that my passion for local television was dwindling. And I had my television contract coming up. I'm not sure how much like Nikki has spoken like publicly about like television contracts and how
Mhm.
binding they actually are.
Yep.
Like specific companies that you work for, the one that I worked for, if you broke your contract and like just left for, I want to get out of the business, I want to pursue another job, like unless it's specifically written in your contract, they are going to sue the crap out of you for more money than you've ever been worth. So I knew that my contract was coming up and I just could not resign. Otherwise, that was 3 more years of my life that I was doing something that I wasn't all in. And about 5 months before my contract came up, I had subscribed to the morning chalk up. It, always came in my inbox the way that it does with so many of us. And just kind of blindly, I decided to message Justin LaFranco. He's the founder, CEO of the company, whatever. And I was like, hey, do you guys have any jobs? Like, here are my credentials. I don't know if this like is in line with what you guys do. I'm like, I did a lot of sports, but the football, basketball, hockey, the more mainstream sports, never CrossFit. When it came to like sports coverage. And eventually I just started writing for them part-time, and that's where the relationship kind of grew. And I really was able to explore that this could be a potential space for me. This was an outlet that I had been looking for, but I didn't really know that I was ever looking for it. I just knew that I needed to get out of the like work situation that I was in, and I needed to find a new one that didn't feel like work. And right now it doesn't. Sure, I'm sure you can relate. Like, there are weeks and days that are so stressful, and you're trying to get everything scheduled, and when people cancel on you, and then it throws a wrench in your day, and you're like, oh my goodness, like I need to produce all of this content and it's not working right now. But at the end of the day, what we're doing is so much fun. I love it. The games are the craziest week of the year, but it's like the most fun I have for only getting like 3 hours of sleep per night.
Yeah, the games are
And
nuts.
I'm somebody who loves 10 hours of sleep. So for me to say that is big.
I was joking around with somebody. I got my media pass this weekend. I was like, man, they just continue to let anybody into this place. Like, you just tell them you're media, and apparently you are. That's how it goes. I was
Well,
convinced I wasn't getting one this year, and then there
really?
came.
Why?
Oh, you remember I spoiled the Open. I thought that for sure would get me banned, but no, apparently not. So,
Well,
to be fair, it was they spoiled it. I just let it out of the bag a little early.
exactly. You weren't the one that actually like found the dirty laundry. You just aired it out.
Right. How hard is that? I'm in all the comment section like everybody else. I kind of see all the. It doesn't matter what morning chalk up posts. There's going to be a counter view in the comments. But I think there's a balance between. Actually, I'm going to rephrase that. There isn't a balance. There's a difficulty as a CrossFitter who loves to CrossFit and loves to do this day in and day out and loves the athletes, but you still come across stuff that you're like, that's got to be told. Like, how is that? Do you find that hard? Or are you able to separate yourself from that piece?
Like, from the emotional connection to the sport versus like journalism.
Yeah, maybe, and then the second part of the question is, then you got to deal with people shouting in the comments that what you're saying is fake news.
Uh, eh, that part has always bothered me because, especially when I worked in local television, I don't think people realize that whatever, and this might be like a separate tangent, so I'll try to make it quick, but there's a point to it. So with local television, there's an affiliate. So whether it's like the NBC affiliate, the Fox affiliate, whatever, it doesn't mean that it works the same as the actual networks. Like, your local affiliate doesn't really have an agenda. Like, they're they really are trying to like be as balanced as possible. At least most of my experience was like that. I can't say that it was like that way towards the end of my career in local TV, but um like, you genuinely try to go out and get both sides of the story. But sometimes, people don't respond to you. They don't get back to you. They say no comment. Like, they don't want to share their side for whatever reason. So, as a journalist, you're just providing the facts and the info you have. So, whether it's local news in your area or CrossFit news, I genuinely never have a motive when I'm looking for a story or when I'm reporting a story. I'm a fact seeker. That's why I got into journalism, because I want to see what the truth is, or a truth seeker rather. Um So when people say that it's fake news or like this has like an underlying agenda or whatever it is, it does get under my skin.
Right.
And it's hard to not, I'm sure you know, it's hard to not like go through and read comments, especially on social media or Reddit. I like try not to go on Reddit at all because in my opinion, that's where the trolls of the internet go to complain.
I hate Reddit so much.
I hate Reddit.
I
I
hate it and I
hate
love it.
it.
I I hate interacting in it, and I hate it when my name is mentioned on it, but I love
Oh,
everyone
yeah.
else's drama. So, let's just be
Right, if
fair.
you're not involved, it's
Yeah,
entertainment, but if you're
yeah.
involved, then it could crush your week.
It absolutely has a few times, more than once, to say
Yeah,
the
but
least.
it's so hard because I'm passionate about what I do. I feel like I never have, like, ill will when I'm reporting a story and I'm not trying to, like, expose someone. This isn't politics. Like,
Right.
I'm not trying to catch you in a lie, I promise. Um, so it's hard, especially when I genuinely love CrossFit and the ecosystem and everything with affiliates and, I want what's best for the community.
Yeah, I struggle with it from time to because I do too. Like, I love CrossFit so
Mhm.
much. I was looking at my own notes today of, like, my 11 I've been doing this 11 years now, and I'm looking back at workouts I
Mm.
did over a decade ago, and and it makes me love the community even more because then I start thinking back of all those relationships I've had. So I don't want ill will for anyone. I am not a journalist. I just make memes. I make fun of people, you know, and I like to talk. Like, that's the where I separate it. And so it's just weird. It's a weird space to be in, I think.
I think so too. And especially, yeah, like you said, you're not a journalist. You're here having fun. Like I think that you have become a journalist in the sense that you're interviewing people, you're asking them questions, you're doing that kind of stuff in this space and you got your media credentials. So John, that certainly says something.
Maybe fear on their part. I'm not sure what it says. I have no idea. No idea. I am
But I think
always
the more people we have in the space that are genuine and really want what's best, I mean, I think it just keeps pushing the needle in the right direction.
Well, you've been facilitating a lot of those conversations and the Morning Chalk Up podcast, and you had me on a couple of times even, which questioned your sanity. But yeah, I think
No, you were fun.
I think you guys have done a good job of asking the hard questions, letting people talk it out, and I like that format of hey, let's have a couple of people and see if they're opposing views or maybe not, but let people talk it out. Is that your idea? Is that Justin's? Like, who came up with that one?
So initially it was Justin's, and Nikki even did a little bit of it with him a couple years
Mhm.
ago with the bottom line, and it's kind of off of this structure where you want it to be kind of a debate between the topics or based on a topic. I would say the one thing, it sometimes is really hard to find two people with opposing views that want to um come forth to share their opposing views. Because even like just to give people a peek behind the curtain, before I start the segments, like none of ours are live besides like some recap shows that we do live, but all of our bottom line segments are recorded. So we jump on the call, we do a little bit of a debrief. Hey, here are some of like the topics that we're going to cover. And people will say off camera before we hit record, like, oh, this is how I really feel, but I'm not going to express like exactly how I
Right.
feel on camera. This is just so but I'm probably going to filter it a bit because I think people are afraid of like pushback of being so open about some of these topics. And especially if it's the flip of the coin that not many people agree about, or maybe many people do agree with the other side of the topic, but just nobody wants to talk about it.
I wish more people would, and particularly in our space, because I think we're all far more similar than we're not, and we
Hmm.
tend to get pigeonholed in these. Like, I get called woke a lot. That's everyone's favorite word for me, which doesn't bother me for whatever that's worth. But I think it's because people don't really know what I believe in. Like, I don't do enough of those interviews, and nor do I really care to for whatever that's worth. But yeah, I think we pigeonhole people based on what we think of them, and
Hmm.
then that becomes people only spend so much time on the internet and they're consuming a lot of stuff. So they don't really circle back and figure out who you really are most times. It's just,
Well, it's so hard because with the internet and social media, you can literally mute channels that you don't want to see their stuff anymore. So you can just have your feed being only the things that you agree with. So you're possibly never exposed to the other side.
well, I think about that a lot. Do you guys struggle to find people that, I mean, you want a varied, constantly varied. You want constantly varied conversation. Like, do you guys struggle to find it, or is the community so similar it's hard to do sometimes?
It kind of depends. I mean, over the past, I would say like 5 or 6 months, we've built a roster of more people who, we trust to be reliable with good, thought-provoking conversations. But it sometimes is hard to see where people's minds are about certain topics. I try to vet a little bit like, hey, looking to do a bottom line segment on this topic. What are your thoughts? So I can kind of gauge which side of the coin they're on. To then try to look for the opposing side so that it is a more interesting conversation. But I would say a lot of the times it is hard to really find two people who want to be public about their opposing views. That there are certain groups of people that we rely heavy on, because they like to come, they're punctual, they sound good, they look good, all of those other things that obviously make a show good and easily to listen to or watch, whatever. Uh, so I'm curious to see like where the show can go as we reach more exposure and maybe reach some other people that maybe they'll reach out to me and say, hey, I have a really strong opinion about this topic. I would love to talk about it. I would love to get to the point where people are seeking us out to use us as a platform in that way.
It's felt like in the last, or at least to me, in the last few weeks, when Dave's back, they announced the interim CEO. Games has kind of wrapped up now that the LCQ's over. Like, I get this sense that people are feeling better about the community. It feels less toxic to me right now than it has in the last 24 months. Are you feeling that as you're interviewing people and talking to people, or am I just losing my mind?
Um, no, I don't think you're losing your mind. I think that that's an accurate depiction, especially as we get closer to the games, because people are super hyper focused right now on the games because that's the exciting time in the sport where some of the conversations about holding people accountable for like judging, penalties, that kind of stuff. Obviously, the further we advance in the season, the more professional that stuff gets. So you don't hear about it as much because it seems like there's not as many issues. But I am curious after the games, what type of conversations start
Right.
circulating again.
What do you think of this movement? I mean, you kind of alluded to it, and I could only think of Hiller, who I know, and you mentioned his name. It's like Beetlejuice. He's going to show up in in the chat. So I'm cautious to say his name out. Just don't say it 3 times, and you're fine.
Right.
But what do you think of this? Like, I hate to call it a new movement because bluntly,
Mhm.
Arm& Hammer was doing this a couple of years ago, and then
Yeah.
he retired. He went and had a baby and retired on us. And now you've kind of got this new wave of. Um, I don't want to call it criticism because that doesn't feel fair or,
Mhm.
completely balanced to what I'm trying to say, but that's often how I think people take it to some degree. And it's certainly different than, any of the other shows we've seen within CrossFit for a while. Any take on it? Like, is it, I don't even know what the right question is. Again, this is me.
No, yeah, it's tough because I don't know that we've really ever seen somebody like him in our space to just be so like he is in your face, but
Yeah.
that's kind of the point. At least I think that was like the intent with him, even some of the clickbaity headlines that he puts. I think that was the point, but he's done a really good job of getting people to watch his content. And some of it has brought, I think, value in the sense of highlighting certain topics that I think have kind of always been in the space, but again, nobody has really talked about, or maybe just like not in such a public way that he has. I think that, he monetized off of, giving people content that nobody else was talking about. And he did it in a way that, could serve as an entertainment value for people in the CrossFit space. Do I think that like some of the videos might be, I'm trying to think of like the right way to explain it. Just, I think that sometimes like they're so immediate with the topics that sometimes maybe you don't get all of the details. So I think that maybe a couple of the videos do fall short in that sense. And it's tough because, people are consuming all of this content and you want it to all be true.
Right.
and
Right.
sometimes and sometimes it's not. And again, like I know, like, when you go through the channels to get things confirmed, you could sometimes be waiting up to a week to get those answers you want. And
Sure.
if you're a content creator and trying to pump out information, you're not going to wait a week. You might not even have the right contacts to find the answers that you're looking for. So, I think that it's definitely created an interesting conversation in the space having all of these videos that he's constantly putting out.
Puts out a lot of stuff. Yeah, I guess I like Andrew. I don't know him super well, but we talk from time to time, and I think
Yeah.
intention for whatever that's worth. Um, and before he creates a video saying, "I've never seen a show," I've seen a show. So just throw that out there. It's actually less about him and just more about like I feel like the community. Like even in the when I was in the games chat during semis, I
Yeah.
felt like there were a lot of people in there like looking for, and maybe it's just the nature of a sport, but it almost looked like they were looking to make it bigger than it was, not just an athlete making a mistake.
Hmm.
I worry about that a little for the sport, but maybe I should think the opposite direction and think, hey, maybe it's actually becoming a sport that people care so much. I don't know. I don't know which is better.
I kind of look at it the way that people go crazy over like a penalty in football or like a flag in football. If you look at comment sections, like during a big NFL game or a playoff game or something, the same thing is happening.
Right.
So the way even though as somebody who tries to look at the glass half full and I'm like, "Oh, like I really don't want to like look for the bad things right now. I just want to enjoy watching CrossFit because I love it so
Right.
much." I do think that maybe like having more of these conversations where it almost looks like bitching and complaining,
Right.
it kind of puts it on the same playing field as other sports.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm excited to see where it's going. I think I'm as guilty as the next guy for forgetting, CrossFit Games has only been around for a decade, really. Like it's not like Major League Baseball and they've been doing this for 150 years.
Right, right. A little different.
Yeah, and we've got all these young kids coming up now, like, and they're
Oh my
truly
god,
just
it's
babies,
crazy.
like, I mean, they're the age of my daughters, and just it just blows my mind how far it's come in such a short amount of time. I can only imagine where it's going to be a decade from now, you know.
Can you imagine if you grew up with CrossFit? Like, if that was your sport?
Oh, I was just talking to somebody about this. Yes, I can absolutely imagine. I didn't do shit till I was 40, you know. It's like I look
Wait, you
back
didn't
on it.
play any sports growing up in, like, high school,
Look at all these
college?
guitars. This is how I thought I'd get women.
Well
I was wildly wrong on both counts for whatever that's worth.
Oh, no.
Yeah, wildly wrong. Yeah, I wanted to be a musician, so I wasn't working out. But I look back on it and think, man, if I had found this when I was 18 or 20, and it's such an efficient way to work out, and this will be shocking, but I'm an A-type personality, so I'm kind of wired to overdo things, and so I've always been that way, so I would have done the same thing then, be great. I mean, I would have never
You would
made
be a
the game.
games athlete.
No, 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 no. Don't let anybody tell you that lie. Like, oh, if you just work out hard enough, you can be a games athlete. No, it's not for everyone. It's
Yeah,
absolutely not.
yeah.
I do not have the DNA for it. Sorry, mom and dad. Um, but I do think I'd be infinitely healthier. Not that I'm
Mhm.
unhealthy, but I'd like to think that the things that are issues for me at this age wouldn't. Maybe my mobility would be better had I worked on it
Mm,
in my 30s, or 20s.
right.
Or maybe even now. Maybe if I just worked on it now, that would help
I
too.
don't think anybody really works on mobility. I mean, I think that some people do, but I know that I don't.
I know,
I
right?
should. Yeah.
Well, how about I mentioned it earlier in the question, but I didn't really hit on it as a topic. How you feel about Dave coming back? That was unexpected.
It's so crazy because I had heard like rumblings, but I don't know if they were even rumblings, more as like rumors. Like I would say a couple months after it all happened.
Right.
And mind you, when Dave got fired, at I was in Florida for my brother's wedding, and I had gone to bed super early because the next day was just going to be full of like family, wedding stuff. And I woke up to in my like group morning chalk up like messenger thing to like 45, or I'm sorry, like 75 missed messages, and the group like chat was labeled like Dave Castro fired. And I'm just like, somebody is pranking me. There's no way that this is happening. Like, what is going on? So I feel like it was just such a whirlwind. And then when I heard that he was coming back, I didn't I didn't really know if I believed it because, and again, I've never personally met Dave in person. I've had like a couple like small encounters like at a press conference at the games, but he has no idea, who I am.
Right.
Like he wouldn't remember that encounter. There were so many other people asking questions. But so then when I heard that he was coming back, I was just thinking of like, who do I know Dave is from like an outside perspective? And he seems like such this like alpha person, which I do think he is, that
Sure.
there's no way that after being fired by CrossFit that he's going to come back. There's no way. Um, but I do think it says something about his character that he did come back and that he's working with affiliates. I think that that kind of sheds like a little more light onto who he is. Um, and again, that's just from like the outside looking in. This is no conversation I've had with him. So if I'm wrong, I apologize, but it's interesting.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong. I would just say though, the ultimate alpha move is coming back after the guy that fired you was booted. So he may have kept his alpha status. I don't know that. I mean, I don't know any of the details.
That's a good point.
This is all opinion based. No one sue me, please. I was excited when he came back. I didn't believe it either, though. I had heard rumblings for a while. I've
Mhm.
know tons of affiliate owners, and they've all been around forever.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, I hear Dave's coming back," and I'm being my typical, "No way, not coming back." Like, there's no chance. I'm being incredulous. So, but then I start making calls because as much as I get accused of being in cahoots, I actually know a few people, so I'm a little cahooty. And I was texting people, including people at Morning Chalk Up, to see if I could get dirt. And
Yeah.
everyone was saying the same thing. We're hearing rumblings too, but no
Mhm.
one can confirm it. And and then when the story came out, I was like, what the hell? Like, here's my real opinion on it. As happy as well as Dave came back, I'm like, it's so typical CrossFit to let somebody else break that story. Like, they knew he was coming back. They rehired him. They should have like had a press conference and wheeled him out and made thrown a party. I don't know what you give a seal for a party, but
Right.
own that story. And instead of let somebody else tell it, it's just so
Yeah.
typical CrossFit. You know,
It seems
Oh,
like that with a lot though. That
yeah,
and I think that's why I know that Morning Chalk Up has been called what do they say? What did they say? That it's like the mouthpiece of CrossFit.
right.
And I'm just I can see where that can be a perception in the sense that, yeah, we were we were the ones that announced Dave was coming back. Why didn't
Right.
CrossFit do it? But that's more or less just because, well, if we don't tell anybody, who's gonna announce this?
I think you guys are a little bit in a hard space, and some of it's self-created, and it's just the nature of the community. It's not a shot at Justin. I just look at it from the outside and go, so if CrossFit's going to give it to you, you are fairly their mouthpiece because you don't have anybody else you can go to and say, "Hey, is this information right?" It's just a press release from CrossFit, but you have
Yeah,
no way of coming off any way other than you're delivering their news, which you want to do because you guys sell ad spaces. So it's like
for sure.
it's a weird space to be in, in that regard, and then trying to go, no one's ever going to tell you why or how he came back, so all you can really do is speculate and hope someone is willing to break an NDA, which they're not going to do. you know? So
Yeah, yeah.
such a
It is
hard one.
interesting because
Yeah,
no other space works like this.
I know. But Bruce hit it on the head here. I'm gonna throw his comment up on the screen. They need a public relations leader, and I've said that for
Mhm,
5 years now. That has been their major Achilles heel from day one. And the one thing they didn't identify when they bought this company from Greg is that they
mhm.
can't communicate for shit. And I say that with love. Don't take away my press pass, please.
No. But it certainly would help, and I think that it would bridge that gap, especially when we're looking at, like, transparency. That's been a huge topic of conversation this past year, and, I mean, other years too, but it seems like it's been highlighted a little bit more this year, that having that relations person. And I mean, Andrew Weinstein, he kind of serves as that person. He's who we go through when we're looking for, whether it's interviews or have specific questions. But I mean, he has so many other things that he's doing, that just one specific public relations person that works with all of the different media organizations, content creators, like people who want to work in this space. I think it could help bridge that gap and make things a little more easily digestible for the community if we communicate it.
It's a good example of, I'm gonna call it a sin left over from Greg. And I say this with total love for Greg. Like, first time I met the guy, he had two different people messaging me at the same time trying to get through to me. And it's like proof point. They had no, like, there was never any thought as to how do we communicate to the outside world. They knew who they were getting when they were trying to reach me. They knew how to platform, but they just got two people that are on his team, like trying to grab me. And they've
Mhm.
always been like that. They're just like kind of willy-nilly on how they communicate, or they didn't at all. And then, you sell the company and all that other uproar. Like, I can see where it's been pushed back and pushed back, but man, it needs to move up the priority ladder, in my opinion, or next year is going to look a lot like this year.
Where do you think you're going to see, or we're going to see, the sport in 5 years? Do you think that it will grow and we'll see these branched out jobs to be a little bit
Um,
more professional?
I hope so. I mean, there's so many factors that are going to play into this. Like, first of all, the CrossFit Games has always been a loss leader for them. They've lost money for years at that, and that's not opinion. Like, I could prove that. Like, and everyone's known it, but they're drawing people into the affiliate, so it's a good problem to have. You want the games,
Mhm.
and I'm sure it could be profitable if they really, really wanted it to be, or supremely profitable. All that aside, I think they're facing some steep headwinds right now. You've had all this public sentiment. They've lost a lot of affiliates, so I hear. Um, you know, and you're in a stupid bad economy, highest inflation in 40 years. And when people have
Yeah.
lots of money to spend, the first place they go is their disposable income, and they don't start with cable. They start with their gym memberships. And that's sad, but it's absolutely true.
It's true. Yeah.
So I think they're facing some steep headwinds right now as a company. Is like, how do they grow this thing? How much money do you invest in the games? Because that's, a significant part of it. So assuming that, the economy turns and this inflation thing doesn't get bigger than, we're projecting it's going to get, I think with enough companies continuing to invest in CrossFit and give them some publicity, I know everybody hates Monster, but it's going to get faces on the sport, and
Mhm.
there are certainly some bigger names coming in that are going to put some faces on the sport. I think 5 years from now, it could, I would hope back to its former glory, what I considered its peak 4 or 5 years ago, and then on a nice
Yeah.
upward trajectory. You're also going to have all these young kids coming in that, let's face it, like, each one's prettier than the next. And I'm talking about the dudes, like, like Peter Magda and James
Yeah.
Sprague, like, just nice, good looking, salt of the earth kids that are fit as hell. Like, they're made for posters, and so
It's
I think
crazy because I don't remember ever going to college with any athletes that looked like that.
well, that's because they were doing bench press and front squats or whatever, but they certainly weren't doing CrossFit.
No, no, definitely not.
But sure, so I think like this young group of athletes, they're all, so young and cute and kind of picture perfect. I think that's going to help grow the sport. And the kids that are doing it, at least that I see, are just ravenous about CrossFit content. So
Mhm.
Assuming they stay nuts like the rest of us, I think they'll spend some money and stick around, but I don't
We'll
know.
be welcoming to more crazy people to join us.
I don't worry about it. I spend more time thinking about the affiliates. Like
Mhm.
I like going to the games. I don't love watching competitive CrossFit. Like I like spending time in the affiliate. You have your L1, right? Are you coaching?
I do, yeah, I
You do?
coach at my local affiliate.
That's the best, right?
It's I love my 8:30 and my 12:15 class, like, those are 2 of my highlights of my day, and it's so funny because I had somebody from my 8:30 go to my 12:15 class one day, and she looks at me at the end, and she was like, "The only thing that was the same about this class was that you were coaching," but, like, the just, like, the groups of people are so different, and you probably know, like, each has their, like, pocket of their own crew, and they become their own little family, and just watching the way that they cheer for each other and, getting people's first pull up in the open this year was just so rewarding. You give them a little cue, and then they get it, and it's like, "Oh my god, this is the best day of their life."
Well, I went to a class today. I've been to several times. Some have become part of that class family, and I got the pity clap because I was doing really shitty, and I
Ah,
don't like that. So I'm going
I
to
hate
quit going to that class. I was
that.
having a bad moment in the round, and they're like, "You can do it, John." And I'm like, "Shut up. We don't. We don't do that here. We do not do that
No, no. You learn which people like that and which people don't like that very quickly.
Yeah, I'm not. I let me suffer in silence. Let me be mad at
Right.
myself. Don't try to buck me up. Don't,
You can clean up around me, you can actually
yeah,
leave if you want, I'll be okay in my corner
it,
of, like, sweat and tears.
it was a bad moment. It was truly
What
bad.
was the workout?
Oh, it was a bad workout. Well, we did Isabel. It's a 30 snatches for time. I chose to
Solid
RX it.
start.
Yeah, and it's this on a running clock. So you do Isabel. That part I did well. I PR'd 4:12 was my
Hell
time,
yeah! Nice, good for
and
you.
it wasn't bad. So, but it was on a 10-minute clock, 10-minute time cap. So whenever you're done, you rested until the 10 minutes. Um, and then we had a short break, and then we did a 7-minute AMRAP. This is the part that killed me, which was 60 deadlifts at 205, and then max calories in the time that's left on the Echo bike. And
Oh,
I did
that's
not
pretty
choose.
rude.
I did not choose wisely on the weight. I thought 205 was fine. My 1 rep max, I should have known better. My 1 rep max is 385. It was 60 reps. I should have done the
Oh,
math
that's a lot.
and pulled it down. So instead, I broke my back, spinal. It was terrible. So I think I got like 5 calories on the bike. And then you rest 5 minutes, and then there's another 7-minute AMRAP. So I had to suck it up.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and the second AMRAP was a 60-calorie row, and then in the remaining time, max handstand push-ups. So
Oh,
keep in mind, I'd
wow.
already done snatches and deadlifts and
Yeah.
a full 30 seconds on the bike, and then you're gonna row, and then have to do handstand push-ups, which I normally think I'm okay at, but after all that work, it was rough. I got 30, which I thought was okay, but it was exhausting. So that was it.
You finished, though. You finished and you're surviving, maybe
I'm not
not thriving today,
Yeah,
but
I'm not emotionally over it. I'm not. It's it's like PTSD, or I don't know what it is. It's like I've always wondered there should be a name for like a post-WOD depression that you go into and you're like, "Oh,
Oh,
I should have done something different." But
it's true, and it's so weird when you talk to, like, non-CrossFitters, like, sometimes when I talk to my mom and maybe I'm in, like, a bad mood because she's called me after, like, a workout that went wrong, she goes, "What's your problem? Like, you're very short and snippy," and I'm like, Mom, like, I just had a really bad workout." She's like, "Okay," like, and I'm like, "Mom, that was, like that's what's wrong." And they just, like, don't understand how that could literally ruin your day.
I got over this one pretty quick. I went into it telling myself, I'd looked at my notes that morning on my snatching from 10 years ago or 11 years ago, and I can see the progress between everything in those notes to where I was today. So I'm like, at the end of the day, like if the worst part of this was that those deadlifts nearly crushed me, I pretty well know other stuff. I've come a long way. I'll work on deadlifts later. Like another decade to get good at deadlifts.
It's a win.
Yeah. But I do think it's the beauty of CrossFit is like it can ruin your day, but if you can also look at it and go, well, where were the wins? I PR'd the
100%.
yeah, and it can there's a lot of empowerment there, I think, of being able to look back and see what you've done. I mean, you're coaching people, you tell me, like, um, is that
Yep.
is that the fun part of coaching, or is there something you like better?
The fun part of coaching for me, I mean, regardless of is if they are a brand new athlete or somebody who's been there for a while, I get such joy when I can like communicate something that clicks with them because I'm somebody who, I mean, when it comes to bar muscle ups, it took like I had every other skill. I was able to physically do everything else in CrossFit, everything, like everything that we've seen
Right.
so far. Um, because you never really know.
You never know.
But like I'm not saying everything looked good, but physically I could, muscle through things, whatever. But for whatever reason, bar muscle ups, I could not figure it out. I could have 7 coaches give me the same cue in a different platter, different language, and I could not make the connection. And finally, I had a coach say something I can't even remember what it is. I can't even remember what I ate for breakfast today, but they just said something that connected with me and I'm like, "Oh my god, like coaches have been saying this to me for years, but just the way you were able to connect with me worked and now I got this skill." So I really try to figure out different ways to communicate with people that connects with them. Like how do I need to talk to this person so that I'm breaking it down enough that makes sense? And a lot of it is I like to show them like videos that I found on the internet. I mean, there's so much great content out there that maybe could be like a good cue for them or just like figuring out ways that works for them. And of course, like seeing them achieve new skills and, do things that they never thought. I mean, I had somebody a couple weeks ago say, I ran a mile without stopping for the first time in my life. Like, how cool is that? Like, without CrossFit, would they have I mean, this is a person that's middle-aged. Would they ever have really done that again? Probably not. So to, like, sneak the running in there and now they can run for a full mile without stopping, I just think is so awesome.
And they're CrossFitters, so they probably think it's normal to chalk up beforehand, which is good
Oh,
too.
100%. Yeah, just, like, wipe it everywhere, like, keep it in the pockets because you never know what's gonna happen.
You know, I talked to Nikki about this a week or two back. I'd be curious on your insight. Like, one of the interesting things I think about coaches is you guys build so many relationships. You get to you mentioned earlier, like the class becomes like a little family,
Yeah.
and really the last couple of months, I think from a social standpoint outside of CrossFit, it's been really tough on people, whether it's the economy or
Mhm.
decisions that have come down politically, and people follow them, obviously wildly different sides of the aisles. Like as a coach, how do you deal with kind of the emotions that are coming in the door and making this, the hour of their day where they can get away from that, or even the hour of the day they're going to confide in you and they need somebody they can talk to.
I would say, like, for me, it's a hard balance in the sense that I'm the type of person who I want to be everybody's friend. I love, like, making those connections with people and feeling that we have that connection, that sometimes it is tough if maybe during the first 5 minutes where class hasn't started yet, or maybe we're warming up together and people are talking about, like political situations or controversial situations, and just being somebody that's like there to listen to them. And also make sure that like members don't butt heads because I mean, just with the way of the world that sometimes when people have opposing views, they're not always very civil. And um over the past couple of years, I hadn't been working there at the time, but we had seen members leave because their views on one way or another were so strong and they didn't feel like the community was supporting them enough, I guess is like kind of a way to put it. Um so sometimes it's hard to find that balance where you're the member's friend, you're also their coach. Sometimes you're a little bit of their therapist if they're dealing with things and they need to confide in you. And I like that. I get comfort that my members feel comfortable confiding in me and that I can be that person for them during the hour of the day or even sometimes after class. But sometimes it is tough to balance, like, where are those boundaries and how can you remain a neutral person that's still comforting to them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's just such a different thing within CrossFit. Like always view this in the lens of my work life because I have a lot of employees and we deal with a lot of the same stuff. People coming in with
Mhm.
issues outside of work and they're bringing it into work, and you want to be sympathetic, but you got a business to run, you know,
Yeah.
and you have relationships with these people, so you want to, you also as a human, you want to be, kind and treat it. But the CrossFit is so uniquely different, and the fact that, while we have all those opposing viewpoints, when we're inside the gym, we're all doing the exact same thing, at least,
Right.
by degree, and having that shared suffering, and I've always seen that it brings people close together. But, I've also seen moments in the last few years, political elections are a good example where you get,
Mhm.
members butting heads. And I'm always interested, coaches, you guys like to coach, you don't like to break up fights, so
Right.
I'm always curious how
Luck
that feels.
Luckily, I've never experienced, that, and as somebody who by nature is a little bit more passive, I don't know how I would handle that because I'm somebody who if there is confrontation in front of me, I at least if it's, like, involving myself, I'm somebody who really likes to digest things. I'm not very reactive. Unless it's, like, my family, then we're all very reactive, but, with other people besides my family, I really like to digest the situation. So if I were to have to break something up, man, like, that would be really hard for me. It would
Well,
be.
if you this kind of theme of confrontation stuff, how are you dealing with internet trolls? Are you getting any of those now? I mean, you're
You
building a
always
pretty
get
big
them.
name for yourself.
They are always hiding in the bushes, John. And as soon as you think they've gone,
Right.
they pop right back out. I mean, it's hard because like you always want to say, "Oh, it doesn't bother me." And for the most part, it doesn't, but some days when it rains, it pours, and it's like the negative comments just start spiraling, and it doesn't matter how many, like, good comments you get, you focus on those, like, 3 or 4 that you
Yes,
just can't get out of your brain, and you're
right.
like, "Wait, like, what did I do? Like, I don't understand." And then it's like, "Well, only a couple people are saying whatever it is." I don't know that it ever really gets easier. You try to ignore it, but I mean, nobody wants to be told that they're doing, like, a crap job or you're not balanced or you're not being sensitive to, whatever.
Yeah, well, and we've mentioned it. You got a lot of really strong personalities in this community that, they don't want to come on air and talk, but if they have a private account on Instagram or Reddit, they're ready to blow you up.
And it's always the people that it never has their name in their profile and it never has a picture of them. And I'm like, "Who are you? Are you a robot?"
Yeah, I struggle with that. I have moments where, because I get a lot of, hate DMs, I struggle with, is it fair that people should be allowed to blow you up, privately? But then, there are tools that you can restrict those people. And so that's my choice, not theirs, so I try to reconcile it that way. Um, and I'm also kind of in the camp. There are just some, there's a lot of crazy people out there just venting their frustrations. And on my end, I'm just trying to remember there's an actual person on the other end. So before I blow people up, I usually give myself a second thought, being a little slower on the trigger these days. Not
Right?
completely
And
raw.
it's like, yeah, there are those tools to I mean, I know you can take commenting off or you can restrict certain accounts or restrict like people from sliding into your DMs. And anytime that that thought like might have crossed my mind, I think about all of the people that then I'm shutting out that could have like a good suggestion or could give positive feedback that could make a difference. And it's just is although, like, the negative comments never stop and there's always gonna be those people, I would say the positive greatly outweigh the negative.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I never restrict comments. I just don't like to do it. Like, it's just,
Yeah.
I feel like, to your point, I'm not going to hear the other comments I need to hear. And if there is truth, and like if I've done something that's offensive, I want to see enough of them to know, man, maybe I should rethink this position, or at a minimum double down if I really feel strongly about it, which I have been known to do sometimes as well. But I don't know. the internet's such a weird place. I just want people to be able to say what they want to say and let everybody else figure it out. But I know there's a lot between here and there. People wanna
There
say-
is. It's not always black and white. There's a lot of gray area with that kind of stuff, but yeah, I do think that it is good to have that open dialogue. It's just, yeah, you never really get over when people are being downright mean. Like, I'm open to conversation if I do something wrong. I would love for somebody, and there have been people who have been like,
Sure.
"Hey, you use this verbiage in an article you wrote. I think that you didn't necessarily like mean it this way, but here is how you could improve." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, thank you. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. Like, this is the only way that I can get better." And I so appreciate people who like do it in a tactful way that's not like, "Oh, you're like a terrible human being," or, whatever they say. So there are good people out there.
I did. I rarely get the good people. Usually, it's just the ones tell me what an asshole I am. I did a meme once. I wish I could remember what I called it, but I changed the name of I did a memo, and it was from Eric Rosa, and I thought it was really funny, but it was outlining all the things that you could no longer say within CrossFit. And one of them, I changed a
Mm,
salt bike's name to, I don't know. I don't even remember what I changed it to, but I thought it was pretty innocent because then, the name assault sounds violent. So I wanted to make the point that they should change, humorously should change their name. And I had 2 or 3 other things, like you couldn't say thruster anymore,
mm.
was one, there's a few others. Anyway, man, I got blown up in the comments from women saying I was making fun of sexual assault abuse, which I wasn't, but I also want to be sensitive
Ah,
sometimes to like the visibility of a word, like a word like that, assault can be very traumatic for people that have been through trauma, you know.
mhm.
But what I don't get is people emailing me like you're describing, going, "Hey, John, you might want to rethink this position." Usually it's in the comments like, "Hey, Wooly, go fuck yourself." Like, you know,
Well, I'm not saying that's like less common than not, but there are some people that will like take that extra step to be a nice human. But um yeah, it's so hard, especially when like and again, like I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but like maybe you've never experienced assault in your life. So when you're writing these memes, you're not looking at it through that lens. You're looking at it through like, oh, this is going to be like so funny. Like people are going to relate to this on
right,
like the way that I am. And then, oops, sorry, the dogs are getting crazy over a bone back there.
right.
Um, it's so hard when, you haven't lived all of these other experiences that things can be taken a different way by, whatever situation people are
Right.
dealing with.
Well, the problem with Instagram and Twitter too, Instagram's easier to manage than Twitter because you can get more characters. But particularly when you're doing memes, you have to be succinct or it's not funny. And I
Sure.
believe the point of memes anyway is satire. You should be able to poke fun at the establishment, at top athletes, at even if you want to, tell your side of a political story, you can do it through humor.
Mhm.
But I am also very cautious of like specific words I use, and I try to be. But I've kind of gotten to the point now where I think it doesn't matter what word you choose. There's at least 1% of the population that's going to tell you to go screw yourself, like guaranteed. So
Not everybody is always gonna love you.
but they should. They should
I
though.
know.
No,
They
no,
should.
no. You're right about that, and I get that. It's just like I don't know. I see you guys get blown up a lot. I'm just always curious how it feels. Like you guys are, I'm not even getting paid to do this. I just do it because I like to talk. But you guys, it's like a real job. You're reporting real stuff, and sometimes the comment section of Morning Chalk Up gets a little rough.
Yeah, well, and it's so hard because the more that I put myself out there on like different platforms and like trying to grow the YouTube page, the more I feel like maybe it is a little bit my I don't know if like saying it's my duty, but it's a little bit my job, maybe a little bit this is all in my head, but I want to continue the conversation with people. So when I see something in the comment section that is just downright wrong, or like I think that there's like a counter argument, I want to have that conversation. But I have found myself like going in the comment section I'll answer 3 people and I can already feel myself getting worked up because I feel like I've given them like all the facts, like I've explained myself, but then they just come right back with it. And I'm like, okay, there's no getting through to this person. I'm giving them more than what I can right
Right.
now because like this has now ruined my day.
Right. Yeah, there's a few of you guys over at Morning Chalk Up like to do that. Tommy loves to do that. Loves it.
Oh yeah.
He loves the comment section.
Tommy's a little spitfire. He's just like bing, 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 bing. I'm like,
Yeah, so does
dang, like,
Patrick. Patrick loves it too. He loves to
yeah,
join. Every time I'm over, I'm like, you can guarantee Patrick's gonna be in the comments telling someone what that article actually meant, you know?
yes, yes. They're both like mic drop, and I'm like,
Yeah.
man, I got to get better at that.
Yeah, no, it's I don't know. Some days are tougher than others. I'm just always amused by how hard it is for you guys to like tell a story without somebody complaining. You know, like I read stuff and I'm a fast reader, but I feel like I can pick context up pretty quick. And so the ones that amuse me the most are you'll have one that's a blatant ad, like for 8 Sleep. It's like a mattress, and you got some athlete on the mattress asleep, and it says hashtag ad. And
Right.
people inevitably would come in the comments acting like they can't believe you guys are trying to earn money. I'm like, come on. Like,
Like,
of course you are. Just bizarre to me.
right.
Totally bizarre. Hey, speaking of your YouTube channel, which you mentioned, you guys went off the air over the weekend. You went dark. What happened?
Oh my God. Well, the Last Chance qualifier just wrapped up. I'm like getting on the YouTube channel, trying to get things organized, and I'm locked out. And I'm like, okay, wait, what is going on right now? So I get into my personal account and I search for it and nothing comes up. Just anytime Morning Chalk Up was mentioned
Right.
in other YouTubes is coming up, and I'm like, okay, like something is so weird. What the heck is going on? I'm messaging people at this point. It's late at night, people are asleep. And I'm like, okay, like it's fine. Deal with it in the morning. I wake up, it's not dealt with in the morning. Like the same thing. I'm still locked out, whatever. So apparently somebody had reported us that there was nudity or sexually explicit content on the YouTube
There we
page.
go.
Yeah, so I don't know like what that's about, but essentially YouTube's policy is it seems like they are pretty strict about it, that they get whether it's one complaint or multiple complaints, and then without being able to prove yourself, they just shut it down until they can verify it. And obviously it was a holiday weekend, so we're kind of scrambling like, do we know anybody from Google or YouTube that we can reach out to try to resolve this? But yeah, we went dark, and I was very nervous that we weren't going to go undark.
Somebody posted a nudie pics of Justin. What the hell?
Yeah, I'm like,
That
are you
should get you
kidding me?
banned. That should get you banned.
Well, it's funny because there actually was one episode that I was in a tank top, and the way that our like video is, it's like you've seen them before.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
a pretty tight shot, and the way that my hair was over my tank top, Patrick
Mhm.
PC and the
Yeah, yeah.
pups, he was like, "Did you do that episode without a shirt on?" Like, obviously not, but just the way my hair was over my
Right.
tank top and you couldn't see anything else. So in my head, I'm like, okay, that's like the only way that somebody could actually like maybe think something, but there's like no nudes on there. There's like barely any cleavage on there. Like that show is clean.
I'll tell you. That is weird that somebody would report that. Very
But
weird.
again, it honestly just could be the trolls of the internet trying to get us shut down.
Maybe. It's just so bizarre to me that someone would take that time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how you guys run the business. Maybe you're out there trying to create enemies. I don't know. I don't know what you're trying to do, but
I'm not, I swear.
it just seems weird to me that someone would take the time to go, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to try to get these guys kicked off the air. Like, I got plenty of people I don't agree with. I wouldn't even consider trying to do that. Like, it's just dumb. Like, you disagree with someone, who gives a shit? You have your opinion. They have theirs.
Right.
They have every right to theirs. You have every right to yours. Live with it.
Or
You know?
like don't follow the channel. If you don't
Yeah.
like the content, like I'm okay that not everybody is gonna like it. There's other platforms that you can go watch to get what you need.
Yeah,
I
that's
would love everybody to love the Morning Chalk Ups channel that I'm doing, but I get not everybody's gonna love it. So instead of reporting it, or again, like maybe they did have a reason that I'll never know, but
well. To
I'm just glad
answer
it's back.
to answer a question you asked earlier, where do I think CrossFit will be in 5 years? I hope what we'll see is like all these channels that are putting out content, because there's a lot of great channels. You guys do great work. Sean and Tommy do great work. No one will
Mhm.
believe I said this, but Savon's group does great work. Hiller's doing great work. Like there's a lot of like differing opinions right now that have not been in the space for a while. And I hope 5 years
Mhm.
from now that's still the case, that it hasn't
Yeah.
become, you know, the ESPN of CrossFit news and all you get's like kind of the sanitized version. I like the community
Yeah.
aspect of everyone telling a different story, and you can piece it together on your own and figure out who you want to
Mhm.
listen to. If you don't like what I'm saying, go to somebody else and vice versa. It's
Right. It's a very diverse space. I feel like you get so many different personalities and different content from all of the creators out there, which is so cool.
yeah, well, hopefully it'll continue to do that. We'll see. I'm excited to see who is at the games this year. Sounds like it's sold out, going to be packed. A lot of people running
Yeah.
around, and be a good chance to meet a bunch of people and see who's up and coming.
Where are you going to be posted up?
I have no idea. No idea. I'm just showing up.
Same.
Well, I mean, I bought my tickets a couple months ago, but now I have the media pass. It's like that only helps me get
Oh,
in earlier. So I don't have any intention of podcasting. Like I never use the events for that. Like I like to go around and meet people, and
yeah.
like I've never met you in person, so plenty of people I just don't get to see very often. And I
Mhm.
love just hanging out in the community and finding out what people are talking about. Like that's where I get kind of all my ideas for content, whether it's for the podcast or the page. And
Yeah.
it's good. And I run into the occasional person that wants to threaten me. That's all right too. So
Find me. I'll be your bodyguard. Bam,
hey,
bam, bam.
well, they have metal detectors at the game, so I'm not worried. It's all good.
You'll be set. You're fine.
The funny thing is, for all this talk of trolls, no one's ever mean in person. It's really interesting. I've never experienced a mean person in the community in person. Like if they don't like you, they just won't
Mhm.
talk to you, which is totally
Yeah.
cool. And those that like you want to talk to you. It's like it's the way life should be. You know. I say that someone's going to kick my ass at the games this year, and I'm going to
Right,
freak out
right,
over this
right.
conversation.
We'll have to circle back to see if anything happens.
Well, if it did, you broke the story. You can just tell people
Yeah.
you broke the story.
It happened here first.
Well, now that you guys are back on the air, what's next? What do you have coming up?
Oh man, we had an episode go live actually once you and I started tonight, just kind of talking about if the last chance qualifier advanced the correct athletes to the games. So that was our most recent episode, and then just a ton of games coverage from now for the next 2-3 weeks, and then we'll be in Madison trying to pump as much content as you could squeeze out of me.
There you go. Well, if anyone had listened to this show a week ago, I called Tim Paulson and Koski.
Yeah.
I was
Ooh.
Now, I also had James Sprague in the mix, and James didn't finish quite as high as I thought he did, although he did great.
Yeah.
I was, a little floored on the women's side. I mean, not floored, but I did the woman that finished second. I don't know her at all, and that's unusual for me to not know someone. So it's really
Mhm.
exciting to see some new, fresh faces coming in. So good stuff.
New blood at the CrossFit Games. We love to see that.
Such young. They're all so young. I don't like
I
it.
know. I know.
Don't
They're
like it.
so young, but they're going to be in the sport for a while. So
Well,
got to get to know them now.
fingers crossed. Well, thanks for joining. It's been fun.
Yeah, this was so fun, John. I'm so glad we could hang out for a little bit before we then meet in Madison.
I know we should have changed your name to New Nikki. That would have been awesome. Next time.
No, because then she's going to hunt me down.
Well, we'll get the three of us together in Madison so everybody knows no one got killed in this deal. That'd be perfect.
Perfect. I'm down for that.
All right. Well, we appreciate everybody joining. And Nikki will be back next week. She's on vacation. I give her a week off every once in a while. So